test water samples. All the municipalities in southern Illinois send us their water samples. If you live in Centralia, we test the water for Centralia to make sure it's safe to drink. The water samples right here are sent to us from people who have wells, and they want to make sure that their well water is safe to drink. You get a lot of samples. We do over 5,000 samples a year, testing to make sure the water is safe to drink.
This is a gas chromatograph. This has the ability to identify compounds if you don't know what they are. The compound comes into this chamber and it hits it with an electron ray and it blows the compound into pieces. And then it swings it through a separator and weighs each portion. And then it gives you a breakdown, and it uses that breakdown to identify what it is. It's got the ability to identify up to 150,000 compounds. Wow. So it's a pretty powerful machine. This stuff we use to run metals with, you know, like lead, arsenic, iron, copper. They won't run on the mass spec well, but they'll run on these atomic absorption units. Now these use a principle very similar to how they identify what a star is made up of. When you heat a metal, it puts out a light of a certain wavelength, and you can measure that light of that wavelength and determine what metals are there. And that's what these machines do, only they do it in a small way. This one has an electrically heated oven that goes up to 2,000 degrees and heats the sample up to 2,000. This one uses a flame that actually burns the sample. And as it burns, you can measure the light going through it. So you can, if you have a deer that's been shot with a rifle rather than an arrow, and somebody sticks an arrow in the wound and the bullet's gone through and you don't see it, you can take the area around the wound and tell if it's got lead or copper in it. You can tell if it's been shot with a gun rather than an arrow. Very similar to what they do on CSI and the other cop shows.
Swabs and blood, and it goes to different sections in the lab, and they do testing to see why it died. And in the bacteriology department, they would do a sensitivity to find out what the organism is sensitive to so they can treat it. For example, what kind of antibiotics would treat this infection. So when a calf or an animal comes in like this, it would probably be about 3 to 4 days before we have all the results in. We also had some dogs are in here for testing for rabies, and they would have to take the brain out, and just a certain part of the brain would go to another section, and they test it to see if the dog or cat or whatever animal we have has rabies. And then when we send that report out, maybe someone was bitten, or maybe their dog caught a raccoon or something, and they want to know if it had rabies because it appeared to be sick or whatever. We do get a lot of bats in here for rabies. And occasionally we find that a bat is positive for rabies. So if you boys ever see a bat, don't pick it up. Don't play with it. So if you get bitten by a bat or you're playing with one or something, just don't do it. Stay away from it.
This is a rabies virus, and rabies virus is 100% fatal. The person gets them will not survive. We got to make sure that we test bats and dogs and the cats. If they got rabies, then they can give the rabies to the individual that got bitten. Made a line here, just need to go deep enough so that I can cut.
Okay, so you can cut in there?
Yeah, just go.
This line here?
Yeah.
A lot of times our samples come in like corn silage like this. Whoops, this one's a nasty one. This was stuff that it was corn in the field. We brought it in, we ground it up, then we dried it out so it comes out like this. Then we grind it up and make a powder out of it. See this powder? Then we run a quick test for nitrates, And see that blue color that's developed there? We just take a little bit of the powder, say a little bit of the corn silage that's been powdered up, put in a petri dish like this, watch glass. We add a little bit of acid solution that's got a chemical color reagent in it. And we stir it up, and we watch and see what reaction it has. And you'll see if it slowly start turning blue, that indicates there's nitrate in that corn. Now, if you try feeding that corn to breeding, animals that are pregnant, they can lose their fetuses, lose their babies, because there's too much nitrate in that corn silage. So we assess the corn silage to tell them how much is there and what they can feed it to. Because some animals, they may have to, if it's too high, they may have to cut down the diet, and if it's way high, they may not be able to feed it at all. There's too much.